I just want to go through here. Just an information item. I'm not going to add it to the agenda. It was a nice thank you note from Spirit Lacey. As you all know here, had the honor of dropping the flowers on behalf of the city and a certificate of recognition for her birthday. And she wanted to thank each and every one of us for that. It meant a lot to her. And certainly it was, she says here, it's greatly appreciated. So once again, Mrs. Lacey, we wish you all the best, and it was a pleasure to drop by for a visit. So, with respect to our agendas, the consent agenda, anything there that you'd like to see removed, council? But we'll consider that. Very good. And then for the regular agenda itself, I understand there was consideration for some additional items. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I'd like to add an in-camera item. This would be considered later.
Okay. So it's like section 16 item, or I'm sorry, labor, section 17.24.
Yeah,
we'll consider 8.8. And we'll see Dowdy. You have something as well?
Yes, I have an in-camera land.
Very good. And on my sheet, just to avoid any confusion, I'm not sure if it was corrected online or not. I had it down as 8.7 on item here. That is the same one. Correct. So that's 8.7 and 8.8. And also, Director Hackett has informed me earlier that she would like to see item 8.5 scheduled to fall between 8.2 and 8.3. Just so the individuals aren't having to stay around for additional items that are of interest or involvement, rather. So a few different things there. Councilor Dallas.
Thank you. I guess nobody else had anything. I'll make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Thank you. See any lights on, so please go ahead and vote. And that is accepted unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Once again, with the best intentions of our ordering, I'll begin until 6 p.m. at the earliest. So, let's go down to request for decision. Item 6.2. I think there was an expectation that Mitchell was going to hear this evidence that
He's in the building.
Wonderful, with the best intentions, but with legislative requirements for trending on some items. So everybody is aware, watching us online. Item 6.2 is a downtown parking update for 49B Avenue. Manager Mitchell with Engineering Services. Hopefully we'll be with us shortly to take us through that item. And you think on timing, once we do the manager, actually we want us to get seated in. We want to 23. As I said, right now we're considering a request for decision on 6.2, the downtown parking update for 49B Avenue. And Mitchell, whenever you are ready to proceed, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. Tonight I'm presenting council with a proposal to modify the scope of downtown sidewalk replacements to increase street elements such as street furniture and planting beds. While we are attempting to minimize the impact of parking, the narrow sidewalks in the downtown cannot accommodate additional amenities without impacting accessibility. So before we even consider the option of adjusting our streetscapes, we reviewed the history of parking in the downtown core. Downtown parking has been a long-term topic of interest for residents and consumers and council alike. Based on historical parking studies completed in 1990, 2004, 2017, and in 2023, we have continuously increased the number of public parking and private parking stalls. This growth has been achieved through improved efficiency using things like line painting, adjustments to parking layouts, and infrastructure changes that maximize the use of available space. Notable examples include the addition of 84 stalls to the Highway 2A alignment down Rockitos, and that happened pre-2012. 29 new stalls at Locale Memorial Center in 2017, and increased on-site parking provided by new commercial buildings in the downtown core. Since 2023, we've added an additional 20 stalls if we include the changes to 49B Ave, the public parking lot by the blacksmith shop, and both changes to 49C Avenue this year. These efforts reflect the city's ongoing commitment to balancing pedestrian accessibility and parking availability in the downtown core. The street schedule for sidewalk replacement in 2023 is 49B. Figure 5 on page 6 of this report illustrates how we intend to create space for landscaping and furniture amenities in the downtown by installing wall belts, primarily in no parking zones or around intersection highways, accesses, etc. This will minimize the impact of parking while allowing us to respond to the requests for additional amenities in the downtown that we've heard during this HPHP replacement day. The survey results indicated that parking is the highest priority for most residents. However, over 70% of the respondents indicated that they would like to see additional amenities with benches, waste bins, and landscaping top of the list. Though the intent is to minimize the reduction of parking stalls, there will still be some impacts. The proposal for this year's sidewalk replacement will impact 2 to 3 parking stalls on 49B Ave, which is roughly 10 to 15% of parking gains since 2023. Over the last few years, engineering services has also been reviewing the policies and design guidelines from other municipalities that have established tree management programs. While the specifics vary based on region and tree species, there's unanimous agreement that the trees will not thrive in an urban setting without adequate volume of root and oxygen-rich soil to survive. This approach also minimizes the risk to infrastructure caused by trees seeking out water and nutrients elsewhere in the ground. In order to provide trees with the adequate soil they need to survive, you can allow sufficient undeveloped space around the roots of the tree, or you can install soil cells, which are structural cells under the asphalt or pavement that are filled with uncompressed soil, which can provide nourishment to trees. An example of a soil cell is pictured on figure 3 of page 6 of this report. Unfortunately, soil cells are quite costly at about $50,000 per tree. And as I mentioned previously, space within the downtown sidewalks themselves is quite limited. The city's parks department has encountered challenges with trees in the downtown for reaching the end of their lifespan prematurely, primarily due to the lack of soil needed to thrive. Full removal, including the root system, is required to replace the trees. But in most cases, the roots have extended under sidewalks and roads, making this very expensive as well. This not only creates tripping hazards, but results in an increased maintenance cost for repairs and replacements. Sorry, page closed here. So basically, the city is not proposing that we go and collectively remove street trees, but we are proposing that as they come to the end of their life, we find alternative ways to introduce green space into the downtown. Doing that, we'll look for areas such as at the end of boulevards or places where there already is adequate green space to support tree life, plant trees there. Otherwise, utilizing these wall belts will introduce things like planting beds, tall grasses, perennials and use that to bring green into our downtown. Now, we did take a look at the cost for these items, and it's approximately 20% additional cost to include these bulb outs on a sidewalk replacement project. Now, that's compared to just straight grade concrete. And when we looked at what we've been doing in past years to try and bring some beauty into the downtown, which includes installing things like tree breaks and the red runners and the sidewalks you get on 50th Street and on 50th Ave, that also is in the range of 20% when compared to straight grade concrete. So we feel that this is a comparable change, but instead of installing a red concrete all the way along the block, we'll limit it to access and flow within these. And one of the reasons for that is we have gotten a lot of complaints from businesses and residents that colored sidewalk, that stamped sidewalk, can be quite slippery in the winter and in icy conditions. And one of the ways to combat that is to put down a whole lot of salt, which then leads to the degradation of that concrete. And so we want to move away from that, but still introduce that beauty into our streetscapes. So I'd be happy to answer any question that council may have.
Thanks, Manager Mitchell. Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Does the design of the sidewalk still go out and get that?
I think you're thinking of 49C, which is a separate from 40B.
My apologies.
So I did have one question, similar to that. Is this something that we're trying to tie together with the previous item that was not accomplished last year? Or why are we considering this now when we haven't even seen the upgrades for 49C yet?
Sure. So to me, these are two separate projects. One is the biannual downtown sidewalk replacement, of which we have $250,000 allocated every other year to be a street of rehab of downtown sidewalk. And so this year, 49B is the street that's allocated for that one. 49C is a pedestrian plaza. It's kind of a separate project. It's one of a kind of one off. What we're doing on 49B, I would like to repeat on future sidewalks in downtown. So what I'm proposing today, I'd like to see that repeated when we do 51st Ave, 51st Street, sorry, and 40th Street, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Councilor Goldson.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Now you talked about the green space or greenery there. You're going to use different ways to provide that, other than trees. Would that include like planters and things like that, similar to what we use around the rest of the community?
It could include separate planters. What we have proposed and what's shown in the drawing in this memo is more similar to what's in front of Fulham Harbor. We have the planters built right into the concrete with the colored concrete surrounding them and bollards and stuff like that.
Can I continue?
Yes.
Thank you. Is there any advantage to using above ground planters that they could be removed at another time when space might be needed?
That's a great question, and I can definitely take that back. What I will note is in this, if council agrees to the concept of this, detailed design hasn't been completed. They've just done this as a conceptual plan, and that's saying there's 2 to 3 parking stalls that need to be reduced. They're showing 3 right now. I'm confident we can get it down to 2, but not confident enough that I'm willing to say that in a memo. So until detailed design is done, nothing's locked in stone. And so if you like, I will go back to the and say, would you prefer a removable planter or in-place planter? I think the advantage to the in-place planters is you'll have perennial things in grasses, so farmers doesn't have to go out there and reestablish them every spring and install them. But to your point, that might provide more place in the winter for additional sidewalk space.
I guess the other question that was a little surprised when you said for the tree, what do they call it again? Tree containment?
Tree grates. Oh, the soil cells.
The soil cells, thank you. So for all intents and purposes, these would be put into place theoretically at time of sidewalk removal.
Correct, yeah, they're installed before the sidewalk or the asphalt underneath, so they can extend under the road or under the sidewalk, and they themselves are structural cells. So they can, you can basically put them together. And have them be empty, and so you fill those with loose soil. It's the loose soil trees really need to be able to grab the loose dump topsoil, which we really don't want under sidewalks or roads. That's what trees need. And so putting them in place, yes, because they're engineer designed products, they are quite pricey.
Yeah, you got that right. I quite frankly, I can't imagine how we could possibly spend $50,000 per tree on these. Is this something that's a ready-made item that's shipped in from halfway around the planet, or I mean, that's ridiculous. Financially, it's ridiculous.
I agree, which is why I'm not proposing to use them in Lacombe. Cities like Calgary and Edmonton will use them in select areas in their downtown where they want the large trees to grow, but you'll notice even on like 49C where we've got trees planted in the sidewalk, if you look at that tree closely, it's half of a tree. It grows up, its branches can only extend one way, and it's very limited in how much shade it can provide and that kind of thing. I don't think any municipality would propose using soil cells in a situation like that. You put it somewhere where you have space to grow a full tree, and really have it thrive and flourish and live its full 60, 80 to 100 year lifespan, as opposed to 20 years like we're seeing with a lot of our trees.
Right, I thought debating the use of them, I just think that we could perhaps engage some local precast companies to come up with items that would be accomplish the same thing at a fraction of the cost. Kind of built very distance around trees and whatnot, and that now suggests that we can accommodate them for a reason, soil or whatever, is a little unfortunate. And perhaps in a few select areas we can. I wouldn't be in favor of spending $50,000 on these pre-made cells, but there's got to be a better local option. If we put some creative minds together, I would be shocked if we couldn't come up with something that was workable and addresses that issue. So we kind of have the best of both worlds, but maybe a chat for another day. Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Member Christie. I move that council direct administration to implement the proposed sidewalk and street improvements on 49B Avenue with costs not to exceed the allocation approved in the 2025 capital budget.
Thank you. I guess another item for consideration. So we're intended to kind of consider this as a test area because of the additional streets this is hoped to go in. Do we have a rough idea of how much parking that we're going to lose when this is at full build-up? Because that's the real important thing here.
Across the downtown.
Yes.
No, I haven't done it, but I have to do that exercise and come back with a number.
Right, because I'll be honest with you, that's what makes it hard for me to support this time. It's not like that. We've went to great lengths to try and improve parking. Now we're getting a lot of ways of taking it away without having a genuine indication of what it will really cost us in the end. Financial part's one way, but the ongoing parking thing is year round and something that residents have made it very clear to us that they do not want to see decline the number of parking spots. I think that would be very helpful before making a policy decision on this for me. Anyone else? Very good. We do have a motion on the floor. Assuming no one needs it read back to them. Very good. Please proceed to vote. And that is passed by a margin of 5-2. Councillors Ross and Mayor Creasy both negative. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that, Andrew. Next item up is item 6.2, notice of motion. That it results from The one brought forward from our February 24th meeting from Councillor Ross. And I'll pass the link over to him and then read it into the record and speak about it how you see fit.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. The motion reads, the council directs administration to automatically trigger an internal review of the assessment whenever there is a property value increase of more than 10% in 1 year. Thank you. My concern of receiving their taxes, obviously you have the your assessment, your end bill is your assessment times mill rate. But there's been some very significant percentage increases in comparison to last year. I think we all know that obviously real estate values have changed, but it's some of the percentages are very significant. The end number of the increase in property tax is very significant. So I just think that perhaps we should have a review before citizens receive a 15, 17, 20, 22% one. So I just think it would be good diligence to review them.
Thank you. So just for clarity, the numbers there at the end there, 16 and 20%, that was increases in assessment value or in
Total percent, I mean, total percentage increase in tax, correct? COLD, or my apologies, of the increase in the assessment.
So the assessment notices have been sent out, so that's what determines how much the mill rate is applied to. But if I could put it simplistically, I guess, if everyone's property value doubled, your mill rate would half. City less than whatever it was, 2.5% increase directed for inflation. So the assessment actually does not directly translate to the dollars out of someone's pocket as a whole.
it does. I just didn't want to confuse the idea of assessment directly related to the tax bill increase being similar. Do we have any instances where residential properties increasing taxes in the high teens to 20%?
I don't have a way of knowing how many properties that would be, but such a thing would occur, you know, with the development of a new home on a lot, for example, or some sort of significant finishing of an unfinished component or expansion of the home, a garage, that sort of thing, but it wouldn't take place without some sort of change in the property.
Thank you. Councilor Gibbs.
Very briefly, just wondering, Councilor Ross could explain greater what a review would look like. Of course, assessments are done by a third party, they're experts, they're apart from the city. I'm just wondering what review we would be doing internally that would be that extra eyes on something like that. So if you give some direction on that, please.
I think I'll get that to CO Gowdy. There was some citizens reported a total percentage increase up there was I've been hearing numbers and I relate them to CO Gowdy of examples of certain addresses. So I think a better explanation would be on CO Gowdy.
Yeah, without getting into specific properties, I would say it's a fairly common thing that a property is going to change more than 10% of the assessed value in the current market. Mayor Creasy had asked at the last meeting if we could have kind of an idea of how many properties that. So looking at our assessment, you'd be looking at around a third of your properties, between a quarter and a third, that would be between 10 and 25% last year. So we did reach out to our assessor to say, well, what does an internal review of a third party or a third party process look like? Because of course they have the mass appraisal system is a system. They're not actually, they're looking at what similar houses to your house have sold for in the past on a square, on an area basis. So there's not really the ability, well, there isn't the ability to do an internal audit of that process because it's the system they've generated. They would just be regenerating. What they are subject to today is an annual audit from the provincial assessment office. And that audit looks at all the homes that were sold in the last year in the city of Macomb. And so it's basically like, well, by your model, to the assessment, these homes ought to have gone for a total of $50 million for homes like yours in your area. And lo and behold, we have the land transfer values up and $49 billion. So they have to be within that 5% margin of reality. So when we see that 29% of homes are between 10 and 25% increase over last year's assessment, that reflects actual land sale data in that market. Which if you talk to real estate agents, they have been seeing pretty significant changes in property value in recent years. So there is that additional assessment right now. Having said that, the assessor fields calls from affected parties all the time. So in a given year, when I talk to them, they say they field 50 and 100 calls. The majority are actually, they're able to explain that difference between assessment and your final tax bill and how they're related through a floating mill rate. And he said, that leaves a handful usually that are dissatisfied in some way. Some of those do result in revisions to the assessment. So these phone calls that people can make to the assessor are meaningful engagements where they're able to hear specifics about their assessment. And right now, 50 to 100 of the 6,000 properties in contact with them on a basis. That's been consistent this year as with previous years. And just as a reminder, we do have the opportunity to appeal their assessment. We typically see 0 or maybe 1 in a year. It's a $50 fee to appeal the assessment.
So that methodology is in place currently for those who feel the assessment number was miscalculated or off for any reason.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes there are genuine where maybe an assessor had marked down the basement is finished and the homeowner can demonstrate actually it's not finished, or the square footage calculated is wrong for some reason. And so there are revisions that are made based on those phone calls.
Thank you. Councilor Luttrell.
Thanks, Mayor Creasy. Yes, I was going to, I appreciate the question about what that review would look like, but if we lived at a time that for sure, which we are, kind of revenue or real estate property prices are going up continually. So would we be tying our hands with this kind of task that every year at least half of our properties are going to go up more than 10% in terms of assessments? So then what are we doing to ourselves? Or is it just fairly, the people who are seeing their assessment go up is just fairly reflecting what's going on in our community? So I think we're going to have a lot of reviews if we go along with this. So I don't agree with it.
Councilor Connor.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I can understand where this is coming from. I know my own assessment went up 9%. And I looked at that value when I got it and I said, well, could I actually sell my house for that? And I think I probably could have, maybe even a little bit more. But I would have to do a little bit of work to my house in order to get to that value. So carpets and painting, so forth. But I get where it's coming from, because houses in my neighborhood, well, I've sold some of them, are much higher than what they were bought for. So I understand why the people are concerned and why they're upset. But again, it's reflective of the market. I've had 3 straight years of increases, but the 3 years prior, I had 3 straight years of decreases. And at that time, the market was a little more stagnant. There was some appreciation in market value, but nothing that is now. And yeah, it's just an unfortunate I mean, it's not unfortunate if you're looking to sell because you're going to do quite well. But it's unfortunate if you're not looking to sell and that you have a potentially a loan out. So I think as Councillor Hooks alluded to, I think there'll be no end to this, unfortunately, until we get a market correction here. Assessments start to go the other way again, that we could be doing this every time.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Quick question on you said phone calls to the assessor. There's no cost for that.
That's correct. That's included in the current service agreement the city has with the assessor.
Okay, so the citizens can call the assessor and have a discussion, and then if they want to appeal that, they would pay $50.
Exactly.
Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. I guess always fascinated when people are trying to oppose developments in our community with concerns of property value going down and now property value is increasing, and it's not good either. It's a tough situation. I think perhaps just something that I see from this is just an opportunity to share some sort of simple graph or diagram that just shows a property value at very simple basic number, and then an increase, and then show what your tax rate would be based on. And I think just it's a difficult thing to understand, and I think if we can just put a simple picture to it to show people your house value is $200,000. This is how much your property tax rate was and what you paid. Your house is now $210,000, and there was a 2% property tax increase to say, well, actually, this didn't impact you as much unless the city's final ask for money at the end would increase drastically. And I think if we could just help people understand that better, then some of these issues won't be as much of a concern. So, thank you.
Councillor Hibbs.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, kudos, Councillor Dallas. Exactly my point is this communication. So council has parts to play in setting property taxes. Our two parts are not this part. Our part is setting the budgets, and then consequently, our part, because of that, is setting the mill rate. The assessments are done by third party for a reason. It keeps it non-political. It's literally based on an expert's opinion on, what the market value of that property is. I was very nervous when I read this because it felt to me like now we're going to start weighing into that and turning it into a political thing, whereas it's very important this doesn't get political. So I definitely won't be supporting that. I understand where it's coming from, and I totally appreciate that, because there are questions in the community. So going back exactly to what Councillor Dallas brought up, maybe better communication around that is necessary, so that people don't have to have a panic when they get that assessment in the mail and get 7%, 9%, 17%. So they understand that that doesn't necessarily equate to that as a tax bill in the end, because while they're used in that process, it's not a direct correlation between the two. Thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Obviously, in all the years in council, most of the situations, people don't have all the information to justify where their position at or where their opinion on any matter. And mathematically, there is a lot of factors coming through with your final tax. Just the citizen that came forward, his assessment compared to 68,401 to 469. That's quite a significant increase, which obviously affects the final calculation, and I respect that. It's just some of them you kind of think, okay, would it be better presentation to have different amounts of increases? And real estate has changed, especially in that 350 to 500. It's in the demand. We've all seen that, and it shows the demand for people to move in our community, which is a wonderful, positive thing. Many people coming in from BC, Ontario, would think, okay, our housing is one heck of a deal. But I just think sometimes the amount of the percentage. I'm not saying that there shouldn't be increases. And yes, it is a second, it's a third party that provides that expertise. But some of them are quite significant. That's there should be some kind of an area where, hey, before you present something to, I will say, to avoid putting the city or administration in this position, it was just should the percentage maybe as CEO Gowdy's and I discussed where you want to start as a percentage to actually consider raising to 10%. I don't know, does that change? Make it 15? I don't know. I just think sometimes when something's presented, you know, there's something it's gonna present a red flag. So just so, and that was my motion, but I understand people's concerns or opinions, but sometimes I think the presentation could be better to avoid scrutiny and yes, here, maybe an education, so.
Thank you. Hopefully people understand now that what I would say some unusually large increases in assessment rates do not have a direct correlation with the increase of tax, municipal tax. That I know it can be confusing. However, that is the case. The methodology we use in following all the provincial guidelines are working for us. So because of a rather severe workload increase that this in fact would cause, and I'm sorry, but I don't see how it would probably change any of these assessments a whole lot to move that needle. This is just a reflection of reality that makes it where I can't support it. Councillor Gillespie.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yeah, I can't support this either. Unfortunately, I don't like this tax system anyway, as everybody knows already. And I think we just need to be clear that the city's amount of money we're getting is a 2.5% increase total over and above last year. So we're not getting any more money than that, even though Rubens taxes are going to go up and mine might go down, which isn't fair at all, but that's the way the system is. And we really don't have any choice. So I think that's the thing we need to really stress is that the amount of money coming to the city will not change. It'll just come in different amounts from different people.
Everybody's had their say on last opportunity. The motion was read into the record. Council address administration automatically triggered an internal review of the assessment. Wherever there is a property value increase of more than 10% in 1 year. So please proceed to vote now. Defeated Councillor Potts voting in favor. Thank you. It's past 6 p.m. so we can revert back to section 5 for public hearings. Thank you. And by statement name acting manager duly where insert director in place. We appreciate you taking your place this evening. I understand that she is away and we certainly wish her all the best. So as I said, public hearings, bylaw 405.4, the municipal plan development amendment, map 1. Public hearing, as mayor, I declare the statutory public hearing for bylaw 405.4 and bylaw 400.70 open, and that this hearing is held pursuant to sections 7, 8, 230, 606. 640 and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended, and request our legislative coordinator to confirm the purpose of this public hearing. That the statutory public hearing notice was in fact advertised in the local newspaper, and that any written submissions received and not included in the public hearing agenda package are now written into the record. Coordinator Maloney.
Thank you, Mayor Christie and Council. The purpose of the public hearing is to allow the general public to provide input to the proposed amending bylaw 405.4 and bylaw 400.70, given first readings January 27th, 2025. Bylaw 405.4 and bylaw 400.70 proposes to amend the amendments to modify the future land use and to amend the land use bylaw 400 by creating a new land use district, District Control District 4, also known as DC4, and redesignating land at 4809 51st Avenue and 4813 51st Avenue, legally described as Lot 10 and 11, Lot 4, Plan RN1, and Lot 12, Lot 4, Plan RN1 as DC4. If approved, bylaw 405.4 will amend the MGP by replacing that one with a revised plan that shows the proposed land use as fixed future mixed use. If approved, bylaw 400.70 will amend Schedule A for land use bylaw, Part 13 and Part 15. In accordance with the city's advertising bylaw 482 and Section 606 of the Municipal Government Act regarding advertising requirements, public hearing notice was published in the local express on Thursday, February 6th and 13th, 2025, and on the city website as indicated in the agenda package. Mayor Christie and Council, no written submissions were received, and the city received no registrations for any officer of public to speak.
Wonderful. One small item, just as a correction. I have it in my notes here, which I believe you read correctly. It was labeled as District Control District 4. I believe that is to be intended to be Direct Control District 4. Sweet. Very good. You're lately reading my notes. Just a reminder that all persons giving oral presentations are clearly state their name, and presentations are to be brief and to the point. The order for the statutory public hearing presentation will be as follows. Initially, our development officer or designate, as outlined, will be Director Hackett, and followed by those in favor, then those opposed, and finally any person deemed to be affected or wishes to be heard rather. Director Hackett, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Christie, members of council. I feel a little bit out of practice, but I'll do my best here. So presenting two related bylaw amendments tonight. The first one, bylaw 405.4 to amend the municipal development plan, and the second one, bylaw 400.70 to amend the land use bylaw. And both of these are moving or proposed to move forward together to facilitate development in the downtown to allow for a future mixed-use project. So the parcels in question are located on 51st Avenue, and here is how they appeared in August 2023. Here's how they looked this morning in the snow. And so you can see that they're right next to Hannah's Seeds downtown on 51st Avenue. And in terms of background, the parcels are currently zoned C1, which is our downtown commercial district. And in C1, there are a series of permitted and discretionary uses. Some examples of permitted uses would be typical commercial uses like retail sales, office, restaurant, fitness facility. Some of the discretionary uses in C1 are uses such as daycare facility, liquor store, veterinary clinic, or drinking establishment. Now, other than a care facility, there are no residential uses listed in C1. And for example, apartment housing is not a use allowed in the C1 district. For this parcel, that the owners would like to build a residential project. And so they have requested the new direct control district to allow for more flexibility for this potential future development. Flexibility both in terms of a range of uses that are being requested, so both residential and commercial uses, but not a requirement to have both on the site. But also flexibility in the proposed parcel regulations to allow for 0 meter setbacks. So for example, the building can come right to the street as other commercial buildings in downtown would. As well as giving the development authority discretion around the rear yards. So before you tonight is a proposed DC4 or direct control 4 district, and council would be the development approving authority. So the two amendments tonight, first for the MDP and secondly for the land use bylaw, would amend map 1 because the MDP shows this parcel as commercial, so would amend the MDP to show it as future mixed use. And then amend the land use bylaw first to add this direct control district 4 as a new district in the bylaw, and then to apply it to the two parcels shown here in the map. There was I guess a typo in the bylaw that received first reading. The properties were listed, legal description was listed incorrectly. The proper legal description, and it should read lots 10 and 11, block 4, plan R1N, and then block 12 was listed correctly as block 12, plan 10 R1N. So that part was correct. We're just updating lots 10 and 11, block 4. In terms of direct control districts, some considerations are that council is the development authority, so no appeals, unlike other districts that can have their development permits appealed. Some of the listed uses in DC4 may not always be compatible with each other, and yet permitted uses cannot be refused. And you might have more than one use allowed on a parcel. So if they're permitted, they both would need to be issued. And this parcel, of course, is in the downtown, and so it would need to adhere to regulations of the overlay district, which is the Old Town Main Street District. Council does have, of course, some discretion here to vary. There are two other options that have been discussed with the representative of the developer for parcel designation, but in some ways they did not fit the vision for the parcel. Residential commercial mixed district is an existing district in our land use bylaw, RCM, and it's similar to DC4 to allow for mixed business. But apartment housing is discretionary, not permitted, as is proposed in this DC4 district. RCM has more strict parcel regulations or stricter setbacks, for example, and it's written and it focuses on combining residential and commercial uses, so it doesn't create that flexibility that is in the DC4 district. We also discussed a residential apartment district, which is R6, because apartment housing is a permitted use, but multiple variances would be required for this development just because the setbacks are quite large, for example, in the R6. And any commercial component that was desired in the future would require amendments. So neither of those ones were perfect for the. So I mentioned the two bylaws tonight and what they're trying to achieve. Public consultation, no comments were received from the public. The developer is here tonight, so he may have something to add to that. But in terms of recommendations, it's a series of recommendations that council gives second reading to bylaw 405.4 as amended, and that council gives second reading to bylaw 400.70 as amended. That council resolves to consider third reading both of these bylaws at the same meeting as second reading, and then if that passes unanimously, that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.4 as amended. And that council gives third reading to bylaw 407 as amended. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. So just as a clarity, in most of the graphics here, it's got an outline of the area in question from the 4813 center. There's an odd shape looking lot within the other. Is that supposed to be drawn like that? Or
The air photo that I think you're referring to is showing, I think, a building that used to be on that parcel was outlined. I don't believe that building is there anymore, so that's why it's showing up on the line. Both parcels are there.
thank you. I just wanted that to be known publicly. That is not a lot wide. Thank you. All right. As outlined earlier, now it's my opportunity for those in favor of item 5.4 and 400.70. Come forward and speak. Micro choose. Very much. Major sign is there. Certainly. And you just have to use the microphone for the watch online.
I'm Troy Rosado, I'm the owner of Cruise and Construction, there are some property, which is sure. Thank you, Mayor Greasy and Council, for listening to what I have to say today. Most Nancy said it all. I have to give and take my hat off to Margaret. She did a great job on putting that together. So it's not too subjective either way. It states what's going on. So to come to why we're doing this, some of the concerns or issues that developers are having with commercial spaces now is it's tough to develop and tough to get financing, enough tenants and whatnot. So you see a lot of commercial spaces that are out downtown, not just in Macomb, but in a lot of other places. So we need to start to think a little bit out of the box and what is possible on that site. So it's a big ask to do a commercial building on spec and then try to sell it. So the banks don't like it, the owners don't like it, and it's, unless it's a owner occupied building, which is very rare, it's not the one it's in. And part of it is where the commercials spaces are going. There's a little bit of time one, and I don't have much to say about that, but it will grow a little bit of the commercial downtown. So what I want to do is kind of mention vibrancy. So we see it in Winter, we see it in Calgary, we see it, and we don't see it here, at least I don't see it. But there's some homelessness and whatnot, and what I see that people need is eyes on the street. People living downtown, people walk around. So part of this project is to be able to keep eyes on the street, keep the street safe. At night, lights go out, and yes, we have restaurants and whatnot downtown, but there's not a lot of residences downtown. So I know that municipalities are always looking for residential density, and so I think this helps a little bit. So some of the bonuses here are accessibility as well as all services. Fills a need for housing. In case you guys don't have the floor plan, but what we're proposing has on each floor, the main floor is the parquet, 3 floors above that have 4 2-bedroom suites and 3 1-bedroom suites. So 1-bedroom suites are in quite a demand these days, and there just aren't anything out there. So and housing, to Councillor Ross's statement tonight, things in that $300,000 range are hard to find. So I think this adds to the available housing, and so I think it's good in that way. It cleans up a bare lot. It's, if you guys remember back what that looked like not that long ago, it was a whole bunch of trailers and a bunch of junk and everything else back there. And we've worked to get it cleaned up and to get a project together. So the investment in here is not as risky for the owner when it's residential because there is a demand, but the investment is much higher. So when we look at this project, we're looking at possibly $5 million project. when we look at doing this as a strip mall or a two-story strip mall even, we're looking at a 2 to 3 million. So it's a significant investment in the community. It does help the tax base. That's not what, that's not why this is, but it is 21 units that are added to the housing availability in one shot. So I'm here to answer your questions. I wasn't going to talk a lot about it, but I wanted to really impress the eyes on the street. So driving out here, I heard the mayor of Calgary talking about repurposing office buildings to residential in downtown, some new developments they have in downtown. So I know this is a home, it's not Calgary, but those things can, we all think big and we can make that happen here. So that's what our ask is. Everything's a step at a time. Rezoning is the first step. The next step is, once we know we can build this, then we get out there and we price things out and whatnot. So it's a step at a time. But the first one is to get a rezoning. So I'm here to answer any questions.
Well, we thank you. Thank you. We certainly do appreciate that. However, just reminded that this is the public hearing portion of the evening, and perhaps we'll give that opportunity for more wholesome input and questions later on the request for decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Not at all. I don't know. We appreciate the offer. Thanks for your input.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Final opportunity to speak in favor of bylaw 404 and bylaw 400.7. Seeing no takers, I'll ask for anyone who's opposed to either bylaw 405.4 or 400.70. Please step forward. Second call. Third and final call for anybody who wishes to speak in opposition. 5.4, 400.70. Very good. And now we'll move on to any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. You don't need a number of people in the gallery. I expect this is just going through motions, but I do have to ask you, this is the legislative hearing. And all for anyone deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard on bylaw 400.5.4 or 400.70. Third and final ask. Seeing none, I declare the public hearing for bylaw 405.4 and bylaw 400.70 is now closed at 6:30 p.m. All right, that brings us to requests for decision regarding bylaw 405.4, the municipal planning development amendment map 1, and bylaw 400.70, use bylaw amendments for second and possibly third reading this evening. And I'll ask Director Hackett to start the discussion off, please.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy, members of council. No additional information to add to the discussion tonight, other than consideration of the two bylaws that would create a direct control district new in our downtown, and then apply it, or new in our bylaw and apply it to some properties downtown, which would be lots 10, 11, 12, block 4, plan R, and 1. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear Councilor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Thank you for your presentation, and moving forward with this. We've seen this land for quite some time, and it's, I think it's an incredibly needed housing option. I've said many times I don't like the affordable housing because I think that kind of sets a false. I don't know. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine. I think it's everybody's. I think it's an option. And pertaining to how apartment rent, in the North End, I quite often hear being a resident and the North End that people want to be downtown as well. Some of the seniors that it says it's accessible to your groceries, your drugstores. I think it's very high. Nothing but wish you the best. So I'd like to make that motion that council get a second reading to bylaw 40524 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Dallas.
Thank you, Mayor Casey. First of all, I'm in favor of this and the information we presented. Just a few comments, and then I do have one question, I guess, before we jump on board here. But I think, you know, this is unique. We have a commercial lot. We just recently did consultation about allowing commercial office space into industrial areas. And, you know, I see prime commercial space. I think you brought forward some excellent points about why you may choose to go that direction or you go in a different direction. And I think that's fantastic. And I also don't own a lot. And so I don't know what's best for that lot because it's not my investment. It's an investment in the community. So that's the way we look at it. I do believe in development, and I think when we can support development in the community, that's amazing. And as long as it can fit within what our community needs are and what we have as a plan, then that's great. The one question I have is it has to follow DART guidelines. Previous departments that had to follow DART guidelines were limited to 2.5 floors. Is that the case with this, or because of the district, it doesn't have to follow that in the report?
Would you care to speak on that?
I don't know. So, Director, you're not bringing up, that is a great question.
It's not often we get to stuff RCAOs to do for you. In the meantime, I'll last being search.
Thank you, Mary. So my question is regarding the previous proposal for application at a commercial area on the bottom. Is there any possibility that this will also have commercial space on the bottom, or is it totally residential?
That's the new channel.
Can I speak? You certainly will come out and join us as a developer. I would just assume the North as well, so to speak. So, put your microphone on, please. Feel free to ask that question for us and Councilor Wilson.
Question was what happened, or why the other project didn't proceed, or was, no, there's no other uses plan for that.
Is that it's going to be residential? That's well, that answers the question. I just thought that there might be, because the previous one did have commercial space on the bottom and residential on top.
It did, but we couldn't get any traction. So we could add a little bit to that. We couldn't add it if we wanted to because of the park. So I don't know if you guys noticed in there, but there are no parking variances required. There's actually extra parking on there. So there's no opportunity for us to add anything else. And that's the parking. So can you go to the dark? Nancy? Mayor Brackett?
We don't allow for demotions.
Thank you very much, Mayor Creasy. So the Old Town DART district has buildings in excess of 2 stories shall step back a minimum of 3 meters from the street frontage above the 2nd story. So having that stepped back. to maintain an appropriate pedestrian scale and minimize the amount of on to the adjacent street. So in this case, more than 2 stories would be allowed, but architectural design, we have to step back and get Mr. Corsia. That's kind of
Comment on that?
Certainly.
So everything was designed around the dark. It's a dark overlay, those finishes on there, it may not, it may look modern and whatnot, it may change, you know, a lot, but finishes on there to match the kind of seats beside. So there's the hardy plank, and if you look at the dark, that's just stucco stone and whatnot. I think there was one more rendition where we had stone on the bottom. So the dark requests are all factored in there. The step back on the 3rd story is a, I said this with Moira, I said it's a deal breaker on this. And I said, we will meet every possible thing in the dark, but that is a tough one. If you guys notice, there is overhead. So if you go down there, you might say, well, how can you build this thing with this overhead power? What's going to happen? And how do you erect it? Okay. This is really an awkward lot. It's irregular and it's tricky. So I've had meetings with Fortis, a few of them I have. They've been able to inform me that yes, we could remove the power lines. And so in that case, it allows us to build. So the dark, you know, it asks for 0 setback. But then it also asks for 3 meter or a 3rd story setback on top. That is a building nightmare. So what happens is, if you notice in the drawings, the balconies and everything are all covered, and you don't get snow and ice and everything in there. As soon as you do the step back, you get snow, ice problems, all kinds of issues because. So what I'm kind of getting at here is, that's a very, very busy car. It's the first thing you see when you come around. It's a beautiful street, but it has the overhead power. So what we're proposing is that, you know, I haven't got the final quote from Fortis. I know it's all possible low. They've been out, we've had lots of meetings there. And it'll be a big ticket, but it will also be a big improvement to the city. So when that city property, that those poles and lines are. So if, you know, if we get the approval to build this building, that's what we're going to address. That's a big improvement to the streetscape for the city also. So, well, I see it as that anyways. So when you come around the corner, if you come right to the very end of Hannah Seeds building, that alley there, that's where it starts to go underground. So you come by that block, and then it's beautiful. But from the new co-op gas station and the empty lot, it's overhead. So I guess what I'm stating is that for us to do this project, we will not be able to step it back. It's just it's not possible. I'll have to work with Moira and Director Hagen on that. But we're also willing to make an investment in, you know, walkability, sidewalks, all that kind of stuff is part of the development, and it does improve things for the city. So I know that that's the only thing in the dark that might be an issue, and I was will let you guys know that. So.
Appreciate you being frank with that. Be the first one to jump in and suggest, for me, that's not a deal breaker. It's precisely why we do these types of direct control areas when there's particularly challenging, lots of which I'm not aware of any that are much more interesting than this. There's lots of there's certainly lots of opportunities, but lots of obstacles to overcome as well. And I think for someone to come up with an ambitious plan like what's really presented here is pretty impressive. The community, like the things that it addresses here, and it does clean up an area of the city that has been a little industrial looking for an awful long time. I don't want to be too critical of it in the current order of the potential portion for an awful long time, but it considered its use then, which is primarily storage and parking, and then the other half, I think as I recall, was perhaps Harley's Auto Body many years ago, and a building for, I don't know what was it before it became UCTV or something before that. Anyway, lots of uses. I'm very happy to see this hopefully move forward and get cleaned up and a project similar to what you know right here come to fruition. And while it does perhaps create a little additional stress on administration to look after all of the details of change here, I think that we should be able to come up with some sort of a path forward to make this project a reality and one that is financially viable. And quite frankly, a real win for both our community and for the developer as well. See you, Gary.
I want to make sure that we are clear on what's being proposed. What is being proposed for you tonight is not the project that Mr. Corsiato is referring to. I believe that that is a genuine intent that the developer has, but what is being proposed is the creation of a zone that has the permitted uses as listed in Appendix A, discretionary uses as listed in Appendix A, and the application of that zone to these two parcels. So to Councillor Gullicks's earlier question, can there also be commercial versus not? Absolutely there can. If you go ahead with this, you can have an arts and crafts studio on the first floor and a personal services business on the second floor and accessory dwelling on the third. And whether or not that building is stepped back on the third floor or not, that is also a decision for a different day. It has nothing to do with the decision we have before you today. It's just going, that can be varied. If it sounds similar here, that it's not prejudging anything, but I'm sure given the character and quality of the building that already exists next to it, that there's a lot of confidence that will fit within the dark context. But today is, do you agree to the creation of this zone in your land use bylaw, which I hate to throw a monkey wrench in, but what's been described as a pure residential project actually does not require the creation of a new zone. Were it simply residential units being created at market value, nothing else, that's an easy R5, R6 rezone. So while the project is as exists today, and I think there's a genuine intent to do something like it, what's being requested is the flexibility to vary significant from that project. Otherwise, the additional step being gone through by the developer would not be undertaken.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. Yes, appreciate the clarification of our agenda, the public hearing. But I will say I appreciate the developer enhancing the area as far as dealing with the utilities, the potential aesthetics. I guess I just have a concern with, and this has got nothing to do with negative. The dark to put architectural on the 2.5 and to make it kind of not as developer friendly, I think should be reconsidered. Obviously, the size of development as well, to the parking, so forth. But if a developer had a parking for 6 floors, go downtown, that'd be like, knock your socks off. Let's build it. Just kind of, yes, that's where I have some concerns about the control. That's more directed to the purpose. Why the stipulations and so forth that would limit the potential of the developer's intentions if it's possible to be bigger.
Okay.
Very good. I'm not seeing much more case on, and it was brought to my attention that there was a motion put forward by Councillor Ross. I think that it suggested it was read into the record, motion as presented. And I think there was some clarification on the ratification. So with that in mind, to verify with Councillor Ross, if it was his intent for it to read as amended rather than as presented.
I just read what's potential motion recommended, so. Do you want it different?
Did you hear my explanation?
Yeah, so I kind of became my investment because of what it was not on the agenda correctly. Does that understand?
That was my idea.
Thank you, that's what I had understood it. 'Cause I was kind of, okay, anyways, so we read it as the council gives second reading to bylaw 405.4 as amended.
Thank you very much. That is very clear. Now that everybody knows what motion they are considering. Are there any additional comments? Please proceed to vote. This was unanimously in favor. Councillor Goodson,
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll move that council give second reading to bylaw 400.70 as amended.
yes, Councillor Goodson, my apologies to Councillor Conick. I didn't see if there was anything was on. I expect us for the same. Appreciate that. We have any additional input on about 4.70. Please proceed to vote. Similarly, 4.70 is passed unanimously. Second reading. Councillor Conick,
I was to move that council results consider third reading of bylaw 405.4 at the same meeting as second reading.
thank you. Additional comments? As everyone sure is well aware, to consider this, it must be unanimous vote. Please proceed to vote. And consider that is unanimous in favor. You're eligible to consider 405.4 eligible for third reading this evening. Councillor Goodson,
Yes, Mayor Creasy, I'll move that council gives third reading to bylaw 405.4 as amended.
thank you. Please proceed to vote. Bylaw 405.4 is passed unanimously. Councillor Conick,
I was to move that council results consider the third reading of bylaw 400.70 at the same meeting as second reading.
thank you. Further input? Please go ahead and vote. Significant amount of green on this item. That was passed unanimously for possibility of third and final reading of bylaw 400.70. Councillor Hibbs,
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I'll finish that off. I'll move that council gives third reading to bylaw 400.70 as amended.
thank you. Final opportunity for input. Very good. Go ahead and vote. With a sigh of relief from the gallery, a unanimous reading of bylaw 400.70.
Thank you, Mayor Greasy. Councilors, you are-
Start.
Sorry, that leaves us with our lengthy list of in-camera items at this time. So it's the proper motion. Councilor Luttrell.
Thank you, Mayor Creasy. I move that we move in camera.
Maybe most people have some.
Thank you. Someone please go ahead and vote. That was unanimous as well. We referred to the camera. It's at 6:53. And we will be in camera with